Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Niharika. I'm the head of GRC and Business Resilience at Agoda. And, sorry, let's talk about risk and resilience today. This is one of my favorite topics, resilience. It is quite a heavy word. People do get burdened and too much overwhelmed when they hear resilience or when they have to work on resilience. So I am going to talk about it to see if we can, how to formulate strategies, how can we make it simple. So I've been into information security for 15 plus years into various industries and joined Agoda almost 4 years back. My focus areas have been building risk strategies and business resilience strategies. And that is what we are going to talk about today. So I think one of the top areas when I started risk and building on resilience is understanding the relationship between the both. They both have a very successful marriage together. This is how I put it. If you work together with them, you can have a very mature risk program and a very strong and efficient resilience program to back up as well. I can share some of the strategies that I have built along the way, give you some samples and maybe some ideas that we can brainstorm on how to build a resilience strategy, and then cultivating the risk and resilience culture. If you or the organization do not have a mindset of building a resilient culture in the organization or in your environment, then it cannot work. It will never be successful. And obviously, you have to align your resilience strategies with your business organizations. Else, your stakeholders, your business leaders will not understand it, they will not get it, they will never be committed and aligned to the same. So let's start with risk. Do you think that you can be resilient without knowing your risk? Just a yes or no. Can you be? Okay. Yes, you can be resilient. It's not rocket science, but knowing your risk strengthens your direction towards resilience. It gives you an opportunity to be more effective in building resilience programs. So this is not new for anyone in the room here, right? We know all these risks. We know IT risk. We know all the environmental risk, all the geopolitical risks that are there in the market right now. And it is very overwhelming to get lost into this when you have to build a resilience strategy. So I think the first question to ask yourself is, where do I start? Where do I even focus? So what I have experienced is that you have to focus on what is going to impact your organization the most. Write down the priorities, write down the top 5 risks that you currently have and the top 5 that your organization is going to face in next 2 to 3 years. Forget about 5 years, 10 years, or 20-year plan. Those are very ambitious and they look very good on the presentation, on the paper. But to be realistic, let's just talk about the current situation and the next 2 years. Write down the risk and focus only on the top 5 when you are starting with it. And obviously, you have to speak to your stakeholders. You are not the only decision maker. No one is expecting you to understand all the risk. Speak to the stakeholders across your organization, your infrastructure team, your business team, your finance team. What do they think is the top priority in terms of risk for them? What do they think that will impact the organization? And then you need to downstream the impact. So I think if I can give you an example here, we are, I think most of the organizations are, but Agoda is also in the middle of moving from on-prem to cloud platforms. And while moving over there, the business said, okay, we will be resilient now. That was not true. So what me and my team did is we brainstormed with various departments. We listed down the failure points while building a resilience plan of moving from on-prem to cloud. And even when we are on cloud, what will be the potential risk, the failure points where we can go wrong. So this is how we downstream, this is how we note down the failure points, and then we build the business resilience strategies on this. So I picked up only 1 or 2 top risk, and then I started building resilience strategies from here. just going to read about a case study. So when pandemic happened, no one was ready. Even the most developed countries, the most developed organizations, the political arena, no one was prepared for it. But what we did is everyone adopted. Organizations, countries, the politicians and everyone, they adapted to the situation. We we came up with the plans as the situation changed. It was very dynamic. It was changing every day. There was no right information anywhere. And I think one of the things that the organizations realized is that were they even prepared to deal with these kind of situations? For example, um, providing laptops to my 50 employees at home at different locations. Am I ready? The employees' well-being as well had to be taken in the mind, and shift in mindset, of course. Most of the organizations never thought that they can work remotely, but they adapted to it. Similarly, I think the most affected area or the most affected industry was the healthcare industry. I think they had the major impact. It was a chaos everywhere. So how did they become resilient? I think they realized that they do not have adequate number of trained staff to deal with such kind of scenarios. So they started working on it. They just listed down, let's say, top 5 risks that they found out during this pandemic. So do they have available medicines? Do they have a robust information system, appropriate infrastructure, and transparency, of course? So you learn with every incident that you have gone through. And I think it is okay to sometimes fail to learn from there. So moving on, talking about resilience, I think my mantra is always embrace the chaos. Even if there is an incident, we try to learn from it and move away from it and then do better than it, from it. So how to be resilient in terms of this constant change, uncertainty, and adversity is to obviously adapt, survive, and thrive from the situation. No one is prepared for everything that's coming your way, not even the best of the organizations in the world. So building the resilient strategy always start from knowing your risk. You need to have a robust risk framework, and you need to have some very good people who are familiar with how to identify a risk, even if it means starting from capturing the low-hanging fruits in your risk environment. And then second thing is clear focus on the goal. I think when we talk about resilience, we make it very complex, you know. If I hire someone for DER or for BCP, they always think that, okay, I have to come up with a very complex plan. I have to show it to my management. It has to look good on the papers, but that's not it. It can be very, very simple, starting from obviously obtaining the leadership commitment, and then you know, having an open discussion with your stakeholders. I think this is one of the areas that helped me a lot in collaborating with my infrastructure team, my network team, when I am building some IT resilience strategies, is to speak to these people. They know the best. So interviewing these people, understanding what are their challenges, what do they think, you know, can be a failure point, has had a major impact in making sure that, you know, my resilience strategy works. And then developing a panoramic view for the leadership. Do not expect the leadership to understand what you are trying to do. And you know, if I could let you in a secret, is that nobody, I wouldn't say nobody, but most of the people do not understand that BCM is important or is warranted. They do not care until unless their bank account is active. So from what I realized in the experience is that they just think that BCM is check the box. Only a BCM manager understands how important it is. So spreading good word and making sure that your leadership, your stakeholders understand the impact of BCM, DR, crisis management strategies helps you a lot in obtaining commitment from them and making sure that they understand what you're trying to do. Until unless they do not understand what we are trying to achieve, they will never go ahead and commit. They will never share their inputs and so on. So obviously helping or taking commitment from the collaboration helps a lot. And resilience mindset. So it requires embracing challenges. I think one of the examples that I can relate to resilience mindset is when I joined Agoda, one of my KPIs or KRIs for the first 6 months was to do DR. They've never done DR in their life, okay? In past 10, 20 years, Agoda never did DR. They might have done it like 10 years ago. So my manager was very ambitious. He told me, Niharika, you have 6 months, achieve DR. I want a full failover across TCs and so on. And like a good employee, I just joined, I was new, and I was like, okay, I'll do it. But down the line, it took me 6 months to realize that it's a 2 to 3 years project. And even then, we might not be able to achieve what we are trying to commit. So we took baby steps. I think we built a pretty good resilience strategy, and we are at a really, really good stage at the moment. So having that mindset, cultivating that mindset across your organization is very important. It took me 6 months to a year to get a commitment from the leadership as in why am I trying to do DR and what am I trying to achieve in DR. So keeping that mindset is pretty important. And I think one of the most important things when you are building the resilience strategy is you need to be proactive and holistic approach. One question that we can ask ourselves is that the current maturity of the organization, does it have a proactive approach or a reactive approach to an incident? Do you only act when an incident happens? Do you take care of an incident only when it happens? Or you want to be proactively ready for it and not be bothered about it when it happens? We have tools, we have controls in place, we have people in place who will take care of it. So taking the holistic approach, you need to understand, so when you've identified your risk, you need to understand what kind of impact it will have financially, operationally, technologically, and organizationally. So for example, I think I'll give my own example. Agoda is a product organization. We are a travel platform, and we do provide services to the customers to book hotels, flights, etc. So one of the crown jewels, or I think one of the major risks, is that if I lose any infrastructure, I start losing bookings. And that booking impact is one of my major impacts that will lead me to a financial impact. My organization will be affected. Technology has already gone for a toss, and the operational will obviously, they will not work as needed. So I am going to build my strategy around that. Next, it starts from leadership. You need to obtain your leadership commitment. Until and unless you do not obtain leadership commitment or you do not become a leader yourself during a crisis, it will not be successful. So you need to have a mindset that is open to change and adaptability, fostering a culture of innovation. There is no one strategy for anyone. You have to make your own strategies, your own direction, and so on. And being a leader, you need to filter information for the people who are working in DER, BCP, and crisis management. I think what most of us forget is that I hired a DR specialist. It's his job to do all the work. I hired a BCM or a crisis manager. It's his job. It's not my job. But that's not true. Being a leader, you need to understand that the amount of information and the volume of information that they're gathering is too much. So your job is to filter that information and provide them the right direction. Right direction is in, for example, in case, if I can take my own example, right now one of the components is failing over 100 services from one DC to another. So my DR manager gets a lot of information from those 100 service owners, and obviously all the information is not relevant, and they can get lost. It is very easy to get overwhelmed and lost during all this information. So my job or my leader's job is to filter that information and then get me back on track. Okay, this is important, this is not important, this can be prioritized, and this cannot be prioritized. Plan A might work, plan B might fail. So this is what your job is, and obviously leverage continuous improvement. If you have achieved your DR goal, that's not it. The risks are continuously changing. There is a lot of adaptability that is required in the market these days. You need to continuously work on your programs. Um, so I just try to build one of the samples for an IT resilience strategy, which you can use as a sample or maybe brainstorm back in your teams. This is how we do it in Agoda. So for example, if we take product A, we have to start from building the strategy, right? Now, the first thing is to focus to reestablish the availability of that product. That is the utmost important to me. And then obviously saving those crown jewels or having the crown jewels continuously available to the market, to the consumer, and so on. And good governance is obviously required when you are working on these kind of projects. So I'm going to set my goal to failing over from one data center to another. So example, I have 2 data centers, I have 100 services. Now I have to ensure that all those 100 services are replicated from one data center to another, and they can move or be failed over from one data center to another in case of a worst case scenario. For that, a lot of effort goes into place. It is not a 6 months or a year job. It might take 2 years as well for you to prepare those 100 services to be available in data center B. And for this, you need to speak to your stakeholders. You need to have your infrastructure ready, active mode, active passive mode, whatever kind of money your organization has, it depends on that. But it is your choice, and you need to understand the amount of work as well that goes into it, including the resource, timings, and the efforts. And then this is how I will execute my plan. I will plan for it, I will prepare it, and I'll test for it. So I think my tier 1 would be the infrastructure tech check. Is my infrastructure ready in both the data centers? Do I have the firewall replication? Do I have the platform ready? And do I have switches and databases ready? Can the databases actually be failed over, or they cannot be failed over? Or the database remains in one DC and the service failed over in data center B? Will it still work or not work? So you need to write down, speak to the team, and then see how it will work. Plan A and plan B should be ready. And next, your services and your applications. So they need to be replicated as well in multiple data centers. You need to define your crown jewels, and how you define your crown jewels will depend on the risk that you identify during your risk assessment period. The assets that are important to you, which might have financial, operational, or any kind of impact. And then test. I don't think that you can prove to anyone that your DR or your crisis management or your BCM is successful until and unless you test. You can set your own testing strategy. For me, if an organization has never done it, I would take baby steps. I would fail over one database with all the services on it first, and I'll do it per database. If an organization is quite mature, we can do cross DCs as well. We can do per cluster as well. So it depends on the maturity of the organization. Where are you in your resilience journey, and so on. And then collaborate and communicate. I couldn't have achieved resilience in the organizations if I wouldn't have had a collaboration of my infrastructure team, my network team, my cloud team, and so on. I don't know everything. And my manager doesn't expect me to know everything. We have SMEs for everything, they have their own job and they just have to do their job. The database team has to do their job in terms of a failover and so on. But my job is to bring them together. I think we assume that, they talk to each other about their challenges or this specific scenario. They don't. They might share information every now and then enter the teams, but when we started talking about resilience, the teams never spoke to each other that what will they do, who will get active in a specific scenario. For example, we recently had an incident due to a human error, very minor change, and it went wild. But the teams did not knew when the BCM team will get active, when the DR team will get active. what does the infrastructure team has to do, what we did not have visibility on the services, capability, capacity, and everything. So you learn as well during the incident, but I think my job was to bring all of them together, talk to each other, and then prepare for the strategy. You cannot do it alone. No one's expecting you to do it alone. And you can build your own IT resilience framework. This is dependent on where your organization is, where you are. I try to define it by crisis, DR, and BCP wise, what my organization has, what kind of maturity they have, what would my organization need in terms of achieving the goal that I want to achieve. So I think communicate collaboration has been the most valuable and successful for me when I am building a resilience framework, and then constant monitoring and evaluation as well. And then test. You cannot go ahead and just test it once and say it's done. You have to continuously test your different scenarios, your different strategies, and so on. So this is what will make your resiliency successful. So that's it. I'm